standard isn't something you set and then expect other people to live up to. A standard is something that you set, you live to, you recommit to every single day, and you live and breathe by that standard, and you hold yourself to account to that higher level of standard, and then watch other people change in around you. Hi everyone, Rob Crop and Dan Stones here from Pravar Group, and welcome back to another episode of The Trade Den. Good to have you back, Dan. How are you?
Good to be back. Hey Rob, hey everyone. Really good actually. I love this topic of standards, all about it. And I think here's the brutal truth, right? Your standards are your reality. The sooner you can join the dots and figure out that your life is a direct reflection of the standards that you hold or you have held, then you're going to start really starting to make some progress, because standards aren't the things that we talk about, the stuff we'd like to have happen in our world. The one day it'll be great when I am this sort of person who lives that way. It's the ones you actually enforce. They're the measures by which you say that that's who I am. And if you can get those standards right, then you're going to start to see the transformations happening that you want in all the areas of your life, because standards show up everywhere. They show up in probably the three places that we live and breathe: how we treat ourselves. You think in terms of standards about your health, that sort of thing, that you have standards around that and how you treat yourself. You have standards in terms of how you treat other people. Think about the ways that you think of what's acceptable, or how you act around your kids or your spouse or whoever else you've got in your office, the leadership team around you, the staff that you've got. Then there's the third one, which is how you expect to be treated by other people. We've all got those, and we can already see in terms of those last two, how you treat other people and how you expect to be treated, when you start to get conflicts with your standards and things don't line up, or there's different standards at different times. It's amazing when those conflicts happen, you live a conflicted life. So I think that's what today's about, is starting to explore how these standards show up. What do we mean by standards in the first place? How do we have high standards? Where do low standards show up? And starting to really shine a light on the standards you've got for yourself. Yeah,
the reality is we've all got a set of standards. I think that's important to remember. We've all got a baseline set of standards in our world. We've developed and crafted them over a period of time. And I think most people think that, well, they don't like how someone talks to us, or whatever it is, that its standards are external to us. But the reality is standards are a personal thing. We've all got a set of standards that we as individuals have. But unfortunately, most people don't explore what those standards are. They don't question them. They don't challenge them. They don't consciously somewhat go down that journey to want to raise them or improve them, do they?
No, I think the thing that we see all the time, we're probably guilty of it ourselves, let's be honest, but we always look at standards as a reflection or a judgment of other people. We'll always be happy to talk about other people having certain standards, whether they're too high, too low, whatever it might be. But how often do you really talk about, I'm trying to think myself even, how often do you really talk about the standards you have for yourself and put them under a microscope?
You're right. And the reason why I love this topic especially from a leadership and a life point of view, is that I'm a big believer that the results that we get in business and life and across all of our areas of life are directly correlated to the personal standards that we have. And that if you're not happy with results that you're potentially getting in an area of your world, whether it's your health, your wealth, your business and your connections, some people are so quick to look externally for that. You know what I mean? Like they're looking for that thing where, well, it's this person's fault, and they justify and make excuses and blame factors outside of them and their control around why they're not getting the results that they want in life. But it's a hard pill to swallow, to accept that the results you're actually getting are a reflection of the standards that you have on yourself. And the moment you connect that dot and see that the standards and the results are actually correlated, that means that you're in more control than you realize. It just means you've probably got to go down a personal journey of, over time, exploring what you're no longer going to tolerate and what standards you do need to raise in your world.
Yeah, it's almost like that. we did the episode not so long ago about hacking and the need to stop this idea of the hacking culture and that sort of idea there's a shortcut or something that can be done externally to give you the result you want. And I think it's hard, and this is why it gets overlooked so much, because so much of society at the minute is based on what's the shortcut answer? What can I throw into well, it used to be search, now it's AI. Well, what can I buy as a solution to this problem? Because something off the shelf surely can fix the situation. And I think that's everywhere we look at the moment. But how often do you just go back and go, like you just said, shit, if I had a look at my standards and I really didn't tolerate what I was doing anymore, that's probably 90% of the solution in itself. It's rarely a problem with strategy. It's rarely a problem with a lack of resources. It's usually starts and stops with people's standards.
Absolutely. And if I reflect on my own world, I'm a self-confessed person with someone with high standards and high expectations. I expect high standards and expectations of other people around me. But that's because first I've got very high standards and expectations of how I personally operate and show up in business and life. Was I born with those high standards? Absolutely not. I have taken over the years in my journey gone, you know what? I'm no longer going to tolerate that. You know what? I'm no longer going to put up with that. You know what? I want to better results in that area of time where I just didn't drop the hammer and went bang. All of a sudden I got high standards. These have been things that I've chipped away with and raised the standards of what I expect from myself and how I show up and what I want from business and life. And the increase and raising of the standards has then flowed into the strategy and execution, which has in turn created the results that I've got in life.
Do you think that came from a conscious of you sitting down and saying, I'm going to raise my standards? Or do you think it shows up and people haven't linked it up, just like the results thing? The habits that I've got, the things that I tell myself, was it just something that happened that way and your standards rose and then you put it together? Or did you actually say, I'm never going to tolerate this again? Or there was a moment that you can remember back to where it was like, shit, that's the moment where I did raise my standards?
Well, we've got to think about how growth is, how change comes about. Some people change because they no longer want to put up with that. Like, I want to change because they want to move away from pain, which means I don't want that time constraint. I don't want those cash flow issues. I don't want the relationship that I've got with my partner. I don't want this. I don't want that. And so that forces people to make change. So they go down that path of change, and over time they raise their standards because they're trying to move away from pain. I think personally, I feel like I've got a growth mindset. I always want to be better. I always want to do more and be more and achieve more. So I think innately within myself, I've got an extreme growth type of mindset. And I think I haven't sat there and went, well, I'm going to raise my standards today. I think what I've just done is went, well, how can I get better at this? And how can I improve that? And what can I do to get better at this? And what can I do to get better at that? And I'm not going to tolerate that shit anymore. And I want more of that. And so I think I haven't consciously used the words of I'm going to raise my standards, but I think inadvertently I've done it by moving in this direction of what I want, which means I've got to no longer tolerate that to be able to get there.
Yeah, and I think that's what I mean. The recipe for raising your standards is, what are you not going to tolerate anymore? What's the pain you want to get rid of, or what's the destination you want to get to? Invariably, both lead you to the same point that, like it or not, your standards are going to change. There's going to be a shift in terms of the level of standards that you've held yourself to in order to get the result that you want, either out of pain or towards what you're looking for.
Correct, and that just depends on what your motivation fuel is at the time, because some people are motivated by moving towards a vision or a pleasure. Some people are motivated because they're in pain and they want to get away from it, and you always ebb and flow in your journey throughout that. But regardless of what it is, the first point of change is making a decision that I no longer want to be here and I want to be there. And that decision in itself is raising your standards because you're moving away from something and towards something else. So that's the raising of your standards to no longer tolerate something, have that, want that, or move in that direction.
So I could be going off topic a little bit, but I think it's worthwhile pointing out, even if that starts to sound confusing, there's the real catalyst for this conversation, the inward looking, is a sense of dissatisfaction with what you've got right now. And that dissatisfaction is going to be the thing where it's like, I'm not satisfied with where I'm at. I'm not satisfied in relation to where I want to be. That lends you into this conversation as well, into getting into a standards conversation with yourself.
Correct. And I think as you said there, it's a standards conversation within yourself to be able to go, you know what, I've had enough. I'm no longer going to put up with that. Because as we said at the start is what you permit, you promote. So it's like, you know what, I'm not going to permit that anymore, because every time I permit that, I'm promoting that behavior is okay, whether it's promoting your behavior or someone else's behavior towards you. But it's you having a conversation with yourself to be able to go, you know what, I'm putting a line in the sand. I've had enough. I'm no longer going to tolerate that, and I'm not going to permit that, and something's got to change around here. And that's why standards are a personal conversation within yourself, because you can't change anyone. You can't change what someone does, what someone says, or how they behave, or what they operate. But what you can change is what you permit and promote and tolerate in your world, and that's by raising that standards, that's how you create change within yourself and within other people.
Yeah, I think that's great. And I think then let's talk through, then maybe have a look at this from the perspective of what low standards look like, and just give some concrete examples. We see it all the time in coaching. I'm going to jump in and just throw the first one at you, because I think you've just said what the lowest standard is people have, and that's the acceptance of making excuses all the time.
It's the acceptance of late payments, for example. It's like, yeah, they can make payments because that's just how the industry is, kind of thing. Like you accept that that's just how things are, for example.
And then the other one I think comes around people. That's my favourite one, teams and all that sort of stuff as usual, but having different expectations for other people. There's no expectation other than, well, that person, they're a bit different. And making excuses based on the team you've got. We'll let that person get away with something because they've been here longer and they sort of understand it. Or we won't let that person get away from it because they're new. But both of those are examples of having low standards or conflicted standards around the way that you treat people, in which case there's no standard at all. And it always defaults more to the lowest standard rather than, you don't have a low and a high, you've just got the standard, and whatever you're tolerating becomes the standard of what it is.
Correct. It's with your teams. It's if you have the expectation that job cards need to be done daily with photos and descriptions and all those types of things, and you've got a team of half a dozen people and 4 people are really good, but 2 are always late. Every time you accept those late job cards or incorrect photos or incorrect descriptions or photos missing for whatever it is, every time you permit that, you are promoting it to those 2 people that's okay. And you wonder why they keep displaying that behaviour all the time. But if you draw a line in the sand and put a bright line against that and say, job cards must be done at this time, and set the expectation around what you're willing to permit as a business, then you can start calling that behaviour out. But if you don't call it out, then what you're doing is promoting to those 2 people that, hey, you 2 can get away with that, and you 4 guys, then we'll just keep doing what you're doing. So this is, in a team context, that's what we mean around what you permit, you promote. You're saying it's okay when you don't say anything about it.
Yep, absolutely. Third one, I think, diving into where we see this all the time with standards, as particularly low ones, is time.
Yeah, this is people not having boundaries. Like you allow people to rob you of your time, and they become a productivity burner in your world. And what you're doing then is, if you don't have boundaries where you're always available, or you don't have boundaries around when people can and can't contact you, or if they can just ring off the hook or walk through your door whenever they feel like it, what you're doing is encouraging that behaviour. So every time you allow people to do that and your time gets robbed from you, then you're encouraging that behaviour. So this is where a certain boundaries is a standard in your world around, this is how I operate, this is what time means to me, and this is what I'm going to allow in my world.
Yep, exactly, 100%. I think the other one is just and it's a shame, because it's been such a thing, the near enough is good enough sort of attitude. That's another one where you can guarantee hand on heart that, yeah, we can acknowledge that it could be better, but you know what? It's okay. We'll live with it. We'll make do. All those sort of things are reflections of phrases people use that standards are probably lower than what they should be, or I can guarantee the results that people are getting as a result of those standards aren't going to be what people want.
Yeah, correct. And I love my dad for instilling this in me. My dad always used to say, close enough is not good enough. And whereas most people is like, close enough's good enough, that whatever, it's just a little corner that we'll cut. But my dad he was a straight down the line type of guy, and he had immense pride in his work ethic and the work that he did, and he drilled that into me. And I know at Pravar, I've got that standard, a high standard of expectations around this is how we do things around here. If we're going to do a job, we do it right. We don't cut corners, and close enough is not good enough in my world. And I think that having that high standard in terms of our delivery of coaching, how we show up as coaches and serve our clients, that's why we're such a good coaching organisation, because we don't have this low standard of close enough is good enough. We've actually got a very high standard of how we show up and deliver from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, 100% we do. You just gave me the biggest flashback then to me being a kid. I remember my dad used to say, he had his sayings right around this, and his was, if it's worth doing well, or not at all. And that was what I grew up with. And I remember the flashback I had was going into his office. He was an accountant by trade, and going in there as a young kid, and I was doing something one day just at the desk, stuffing around with something that he'd sort of given me some task, I don't know, licking stamp or something. And anyway, I remember one of the ladies that worked there, and she actually said the same thing to me at the same time. And I remember that really vividly in terms of putting two and two together and going, holy shit, that's what Dad says. And I thought, but he's the boss, so he's told all the staff. Even then I could sort of join the dots around that's more than just him being annoying or trying to be a hard taskmaster or however you might interpret it as a kid. It was actually a standard that was in place, and I saw how that had translated from his mouth to people saying the exact same thing in his team and in his organisation with his staff. It was a really powerful memory.
And that's why this is a Leadership Matters episode, because we've got to remember that low standards create mediocre results. And you've heard us say on the podcast before that the fish rots from the head down. So as the leader, everything starts with stop and stops with you as a leader. And so if you have that mindset, or the standard is close enough is good enough, then guess how your team are going to operate. If you accept late payment, guess what you're condoning for your customers to do? Pay you late. If you accept job cards not being complete, or missing photos, or incorrect descriptions, guess what you're encouraging your team to do? And so this is why it's a Leadership Matters, is because as a leader, you have to set and stay and stick to the standards that you set for yourself and promote within your organisation and your life, because it's the standards which create the results in business and life. And that's why it's a Leadership Matters episode.
It really is. I think the other leadership episodes we've done before, maybe around vision, for instance, even drive this home too, because you think if leadership is having the vision for everyone in the team, awesome. You can have the best vision in the world. You can be as inspiring as you like, but if your standards don't match what's required to have that vision come true, you'll never hit them. It's just a matter of fact that's what happens. So vision in terms of leadership isn't enough. Showing up isn't enough. It's the standards you bring to everything that you do that makes all the difference.
Correct. And you just think about it in standards. Like, if you've got low expectations around your health and well-being, well, of course you're not going to go to the gym. You're not going to eat well. You're not going to be hydrated. If you've got low expectations around your team, of course they're not going to deliver. If you've got low expectations around yourself in this relationship, that this is just okay how people treat me and that how I treat other people, of course your relationship with your wife and your kids and your friends and family are going to suck. And so low expectations result in poor behaviour, inconsistent behaviour, poor habits, and shit results in life. And so standards is such a huge topic, and over time, the more you just chip away at raising your standards and raise them more and more and more, and you step up and play a bigger game, the results will over time follow. And that's the power of raising your standards.
It does. You expect more from yourself. You expect more from the actions and the effort you put in. You expect to put in more effort in terms of what you're doing, and you expect more from others. I mean, everything starts to evolve from there. And I think when you see that happen, and as a coach, you see it happen all the time, but then what do you see happening? It grows not just into the result that they wanted, but the person they become changes too, I think, Rob. They change internally for the better as a result.
Yeah, correct. You do more, your performance improves, your confidence somewhat grows, and I think you achieve more, and life just becomes more fulfilling. You become happier, and what you start to notice over a period of time is people, as I said before, you can't change people, but people will start to notice a difference in you because you're like, you know what, I'm not going to tolerate that shit anymore. And people either step up and rise to the occasion, or you'll find that people will somewhat self-select out of your world to some degree.
Yeah, we see this all the time in business coaching with staff issues and things like that. And the answer is always, the question always comes is, well, what do I do about this person that's not performing? And how do I treat this person? And what do I do with this one sub-performer? The answer invariably comes back, well, raise your standards, stop tolerating it. And it's amazing the minute that the business owner raises their standards and it now becomes known and it's a lived, breathed, demonstrated standard in the organisation, it's amazing how often that troublesome person opts out. They leave. All of a sudden there's the resignation notice that shows up on the desk, or, hey, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's all as a result of the owner lifting their standards. The other people around you don't change, but they have to make a choice. Do I want to live in this world at this sort of level or not?
This is what I love about being a coach the most, if I'm honest. It's, imagine as coaches, we just went, oh, that's all right if you're late. Who cares if you don't get good results? You know, that's all right. You just meander along through life that way. Like it. Imagine as a coach, that was just our mantra. And what I've noticed over 15 years of coaching is the more I expect from myself, the more I expect from clients. And some clients love that because it challenges them to step up and play a bigger game. And they get the results. Others don't like it because they feel challenged and they step out because they want to go back to safety and comfort. But this is what I love about coaches, being a coach, is it's mirroring. We help clients live a better life. We live a better life as well because we're all growing together. And it's our way of, as coaches, that's why it's so important that we keep raising our standards, because we've got it's incongruent if we expect more from ourselves, but don't do that. Sorry, if we expect more from our clients, but we're not willing to expect more from ourselves. And this is the gift we get as coaches, isn't it?
It really is. I think it's also the biggest hurdle getting into coaching. It certainly was for me so many years ago. It was like, how can I say I'm going to be a coach? I knew I wanted to be. I had the vision, all that stuff there, but it was like, you're not living the level to what you can't demonstrate the standards. And for me, it was always a big thing. Can you demonstrate the standards? Not that you had to be perfect or that sort of person, but there's a baseline level of standard. For you to stand up in front of someone and coach someone, you've got to have at least an amount of credibility that you live this way. Otherwise, you're no different to the personal trainer who's out of shape trying to get clients. It's like, why the hell is anyone going to want to follow your leadership, or in our world, your coaching? It just doesn't stack up.
And so the word that comes to my mind there is a level of congruency. And so for you listening here today, is a standard isn't something you set and then expect other people to live up to. A standard is something that you set, you live to, you recommit to every single day, and you live and breathe by that standard, and you hold yourself to account to that higher level of standard, and then watch other people change in around you. And they'll either step in or step out. But if you're not willing to be congruent with that standard that you accept, you will be that personal trainer who is overweight, expecting other people to go to the gym and eat healthy. And people see through that. So as a leader, this is the hardest part of leadership, is raising your own standards and living and breathing by them every single day.
Yeah. And I think that comes with the decision. Like you're going to have to make that decision every day. You're right. You're 100% right. But I think if you're looking for that avenue, well, all right, that sounds awesome. I'm all in and I'm fired up. You've got to have to come to face the facts that it's now decision time, right? It's not, you're not wishing this to be better. You're not hoping for it to be better, but you've got to really make a concrete decision about this is going to be something I'm going to decide and commit to every single day.
And this is why leadership's fucking hard. And not many people build a business to the level that I love seeing our clients build to, is because leadership is hard. It's one of the biggest personal journeys that you will go through in life. It's personal development wrapped up and in a little bow. That's what leadership is. It's a journey of self-discovery and self-awareness. But as a leader, you got to show up no matter what. If you've had a good day or a bad day, you've got to show up and deliver. And leadership is tough because it's a game of standards in the end of the day. And if you're not on your game, your team and the people around you will see through that, and they won't feel you being incongruent. They'll feel you are being incongruent, and you'll get crucified for it. And that's why this standards conversation is attached to leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as we round it out, I'm sort of thinking through it is a special year at Pravar this year for all kinds of reasons and how long we've been around. But I think the thing that you've told me before, and maybe share that sort of thing about what you think have been the moments and those times where what's changed it all, what's had the trajectory, some of the conversations we've had about where the business has been and where it's going and all that sort of stuff. You always come back to that same point.
When I look back on all those moments where we've taken things to a whole new height, whether it be in business and life, the ingredient is that business and life has got better from the moment that I demanded more from myself. And so what I did is I demanded that. I expected more. I wanted more. I set a new standard for how Rob was going to show up and the results that I wanted in my business and my life. And from that moment, I raised the bar, which then meant I acted differently, behaved differently, showed up differently for the better. And that showing up differently with the right execution of the right strategy is what took us to a whole new level. But if you look back on it, it was that decision that I demanded more from myself as a leader in whatever area it was in my life.
Yeah, the results don't come in the standard. You grow into it. You've got to set the standard to get the result.
It's a decision.
Yeah.
Like a conscious decision that you have to make, that I demand more and I'm going to do more and be more and have more in my world. And I think once you make that decision, you either rise to the occasion or you go back to comfort. But it's a decision to continually step up and play a bigger game. Before we wrap up today, Dan, maybe we should set a bit of a challenges for the listeners to be able to raise their standards so that they can get better results over the next 6 to 12 months. What do you think? Yeah,
I think it'd be good. I think, again, it's that exercise of looking inward with your standards and feeling the power that comes from it, not just judging everyone else or where you're at in relation to everyone else's standards. So let's do it. I think a 3-step challenge this week would be write down one thing. So sit down and have a think about it really deeply. Think deep down, what are you tolerating? And when you think about what you're tolerating, think about the things that you're dissatisfied with. What do you think would be great if it was different? And then come back to, well, why is it not the way it is? And what am I tolerating or what am I dissatisfied with? Because that's the thing in your business. And let's stick to business, this one. What is one thing that you're no longer going to accept in your business? Where are you going to make that demand? So once you identify it, part 2 is then picking that one standard that you're going to raise. What's the standard going to become? And start with yourself. Don't write, I'm going to go out and tell everyone the new standard is. What's the standard in relation to you? Where's it going to start with you? And what will you demand more from yourself this week? Like Rob just said, everything that happens great at Pravar seems to always start and be traced back. And we've got data and evidence. We've looked at it every time. It always comes back to that moment where Rob said, right, the new version, the new way we do things around here is going to start with this. And it becomes a demand on himself, though, not on the people around him or the staff that are employed at the time. And then the third thing is, once you've said that, communicate it clearly to your team and talk about the expectations on yourself as you're working on this for you. I'm working on this. This is going to be the new standard around here. I need your help and come with me on this front, but I'm going to need you to pick me up on this. And you've got permission to do that. And I'm going to be calling this out a lot more. And I think it's that shared knowledge of what the standard is and being able to communicate that clearly and set that new boundary that you then all start trying to live to and reach to, that becomes the new place that you live and operate from as a business. And I think that's a really good challenge. If you can do that over the next week, even in that one small thing, don't try and change the world. You're trying to change one standard, one thing that you've tolerated. You'll know what it is. But what's that one thing you've tolerated that you're no longer going to tolerate? You're going to do something about it. Make that decision.
If you don't set standards for what you're going to accept in life, you're going to find it very easy to accept excuses, justify why you're not achieving things, or blame other people around the results you're getting in life. And you will live a life far less than you actually deserve in your world. And you have to remember that mediocrity is the worst enemy of prosperity. Never forget that. And this episode is about you drawing a line in the sand to be able to go, what are the standards that I want to have across my health, my wealth, my business and connections? And if you do that, you will thank yourself in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, because you will look back and go, I can see where I raised that standard and I can see how that created that result in my life. But you're in more control than you realize, and it's your ability to, over time, raise the standards of what you expect from yourself and your life, and watch your life and business and life transform for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the thing I'll add to that just before we run is you don't get what you want or what you hope for in life. You'll get the standards that you tolerate every time. So stop hoping, stop wanting, make some decisions and raise those standards and make some demands on yourself, like Rob said. Really important.
If you're ready to raise the standard in your business and your life, and you're actually committed to making change, jump across to strategysession.com.au, book in a time. Let's talk a bit about where you're at, where you're trying to go, and let's make some positive change in your world over the next 6 to 12 months together. That's another episode of The Trade Den. Hopefully you enjoyed today's episode. Get out there and raise that one standard in your world, and looking forward to coming back to you next week with another episode.
See you soon.
See ya.